Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland. 2024 is no more and 2025 is coming alive. But you know what, folks? That doesn't mean that we are free from problems created in past years. Not only in 2024, but years back, even decades. And that's especially true when we talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Tonight, I'm going to be covering some very recent comments by John Sykes, the chairman of the board, to the Hall, and what he thinks about the future of the Hall. And all I can say, folks, is take a look at this guy's face, first of all right? Doesn't he remind you of a guy that scammed you on an insurance policy? I mean, this guy is about as rock and roll as my Aunt Petunia. Tonight, I'm going to take this moron's own words and nail his ass. All right, so first of all, a lot of my longtime viewers are quite aware that I've been known to occasionally take pot shots at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, I love the whole idea of a Rock Hall of Fame. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great idea for us to have a country Hall of Fame, a hip-hop Hall of Fame, a rap Hall of Fame. But I wouldn't expect the Rap Hall of Fame to induct Metallica any more than I would expect the Country Hall of Fame to induct the Sex Pistols. But what do we have with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? To make my point, I'm going to use four names that I've used before in videos, and those names are Dolly Parton, Missy Elliott, Willie Nelson, and LL Cool J. Now, I don't believe either one of these people belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm a fan of two of these folks and don't give a damn about the other two. You see, the four of them represent country, hip-hop, and rap. Now, a lot of folks will bring up the fact that artists like Missy Elliott having a gospel background, therefore, since she has a gospel background and has moved into a more successful, hip-hop career, that she has the same lineage as acts in rock that had gospel background and how it influenced their sound. And I'll tell you right now, that makes no sense. I'll give you an example. Billy Preston had a gospel background. Then he joined up with Little Richard and wound up almost joining the Beatles, never quite letting go of that gospel background even influencing his playing, and his playing influencing the rock arena that he enjoyed the majority of his career in. But what have these hip-hop artists done with that gospel background? Have they played in the rock arena at all? No, they haven't. And so their very claims to having the same background of rock makes no freaking logical sense, and the rest of their sound was crafted inner city. Rock, and at least country, can claim to their beginnings from the fields, a totally different subgenre of music. And how did these inductees even get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Well, take a look at their nominating committee. It is full of executives from hip-hop and rap magazines. They have absolutely no background in rock and roll, and one can only wonder what their hidden agenda really is. But they're not totally to blame. You see, they're led by the new chairman of the board, John Sykes. Now, this guy was put in place, none other than Jan Wenner, the infamous Jan Wenner, the same Jan Wenner that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has tried to distance themselves from. But what do we have left? A board that was pretty much put in place by Jan Wenner and a chairman of the board who was given power by Jan Wenner. So keep that in mind as we go through some quotations by John Sykes tonight in an article I found. And basically the article starts off like this, folks. It starts off by saying the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame has no plans to change its name, despite a steady influx of artists from outside the game. In recent years, the organization has displayed a broad interpretation of rock and roll, welcoming in an array of hip-hop acts, for example, Missy Elliott, A Tribe Called Quest, Eminem, and pop stars such as Cher and Whitney Houston, not to mention country artists such as Willie Nelson and Dolly Parton. Now, this quick little opening concludes by saying the trend has led to calls for a name update to the Music Hall of Fame, but Rock Hall Chairman John Sykes says that isn't going to happen. But listen to what this paragon of rock and roll, this expert on rock and roll, chooses to quote next to prove his point here. He says, as Missy Elliott calls it, it was gumbo. It just became known as rock and roll. So when I hear people say, you should just change it to the Music Hall of Fame, rock and roll has pretty much covered all of that territory. Oh, but he doesn't stop there, folks. Sykes said the challenge is changing the public perception of what rock and roll is. Now, listen to what he has to say about that. Rather than throwing the name out, it's doing a much better job of communicating to people where rock and roll came from and what it's truly about. Once they hear it that way, they will understand. Now, if that doesn't set your teeth on edge, how about the next person he quotes to prove his rock and roll point? He quotes Jay-Z, who had been inducted in 2021. And evidently, Jay-Z rightfully had some reservations about the honor. And Sykes said, he told me rock is dead. It should be called the Hip Hop Hall of Fame. And I said that hip hop is rock and roll. He goes, no, it isn't. And I said, we've got to do a better job explaining it. Little Richard, Otis Redding, Chuck Berry, these artists were the cornerstones of rock and roll. If you look at the sounds over the years, those artists ended up influencing hip hop. Now, he goes on to say, well, Jay-Z eventually, he hemmed and hawed, but he accepted the honor. And he said, that made me feel like we had done our job to communicate that rock and roll is open to all. What a load of bullshit this guy can dish out. That's all I've got to say. First of all, his tying in Chuck Berry and others to hip hop makes no sense whatsoever. A lot of subgenres have influences in all kinds of other subgenres of music, but it really does get down to the basic style of a subgenre. And there are many subgenres in rock and roll, but hip hop and rap, in my opinion, ain't one of them. Now, do you guys see what I'm talking about here? This guy, with his moronic current statements, is rewriting history. We see a lot of that these days, don't we? And I have no problem with other subgenres of music. If those subgenres of music, hip hop, country, rap, ring your chimes, go for it. I actually like a lot of country artists. But when you homogenize all of these major subgenres to the point that there's really no identity left, to me, that's a sin. There's a lot of us that test our DNA. We want to know where we came from. We want to celebrate our own familial origins. For me, rock and roll is a family, all right? it has a certain DNA, and you don't inject other strands of DNA from whatever other subgenre and then declare that subgenre rock and roll. It doesn't work that way. All right, folks, I know I get a little hot and bothered. That's the video for tonight. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. You know, that helps the video get to more home feeds, more people see it, the tribe grows. And speaking of the tribe growing, if you haven't subbed to this channel as of yet, it's easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, tap that top bell icon, and you'll be notified of all my future videos. All right, I want to hear from each and every one of you. What do you think about this? This, to me, is a hot potato, and we've got to be really careful where we're going here. We're talking about the possible destruction of an art form. I don't like burning books, and I don't like destroying art forms. All right, I'm Michael Noland. This is The Bottom Line, and tonight you heard my bottom line. But the real bottom line for this channel always exists in the comments. Read those comments, folks, because that's the real consensus of what this channel stands for. It's a democracy with a benevolent instigator such as myself. All right, you know, I can't help but think, when we do this, folks, we only show people that we, here it comes, are the tribe.